Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. Boy, have we got a lot to talk about this evening. There's been a big report coming in from the YEP in the last few hours talking about how Leeds United's transfer business is going to look in the January transfer window. So we'll get into that. There's talks about how we're going to use the loan market. There's talks about how we are going to use, who we're going to sell as well. There's a bit of talk about that as well. So we'll talk all about that. We're also going to have a little review of, or preview, shall I say, of the Brentford versus Leeds United match as well. Talk a bit about that and how that's going to go and all the complications to do with that. The fact that Nmecha's missing. The fact that actually Brentford have got a few players missing. So it might be quite a long stream tonight, people. So I hope you're ready in, you're sat in, you're ready to go because we do have, as I said, quite a bit to discuss. But yeah, let's start with the first story, shall we? And let's start talking about this massive YEP story. Before we get into all that, of course, you can help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Does massively help the channel as well. So if you could do that, I actually lost a subscriber today. So if someone could make up for that and resubscribe and get me back to 1,293, that would be very, very helpful. Anyway, as I said, the YEP today have been talking about sort of how Leeds United's transfer window is going to look, and they've basically said that they don't expect Leeds United to spend tons of money in the January transfer window, and they actually think that if Leeds United are going to do business in the January window, it will be more focused on the loan market. Now, I've got a few things to say about this. I think, first of all, with Leeds United in the loan market. Now, the loan market... Excuse me, everybody. The loan market is something that Leeds United should have used, in my opinion, for a long period of time. This is something that Leeds United should have been all over for all last summer, maybe in January, the season before. And we really have failed to use the January window and the loan market as long as I can know, as long as the 49ers have been in post, really. So I think it's important that this time we don't make that mistake and we do go into the January window. Like in the summer, to not do a loan signing for me was just laughable. Like, we know we had a limited budget to spend. When you've got a limited budget to spend, you've got to go and utilise the loan market. There's so many fantastic loan players that you can pick up. And I know they tried with Benotti and that one didn't work, and that would have been a good addition for Leeds United. But there's so many other options that we could have delved into and gone for. So it's really important that we do use it in the January window. I also want to say regarding this as well, and I've said this a few times on the channel, but I want to bring it up again because I think it's important. This January window is going to be unlike any other January transfer window that we've had for a while, because I think in terms of the loan market, this should be the best loan market we have seen for players that I can remember in a long time. And the reason for this is the World Cup. Every single player that's playing for a nation that's qualified for the World Cup, and a lot of them obviously will be playing at the top level, want to get into that World Cup squad. It's a player's dream. Let's be honest, if me and you were playing football, we'd want to be in the World Cup squad for our respective teams. So, and there's a lot of players that are currently at football clubs, that are big clubs, that are not playing football and need an option. And I think that's where Leeds United have got swooping. Not that we're not a big club, but there's going to be, like, as I said, the one I always use is Kobbie Mainoo. Kobbie Mainoo at Man United is a simple version. Really good player, fantastically, came through really well. Obviously not favoured by Amorim. Maybe would have stayed in January on a normal season, but because it's World Cup year, go out, get football. And I think there's players like him in the market that Leeds United can go get. So, as I said, the loan market, this is a perfect time to use the loan market, and there should be loads of options in the loan market for Leeds United. So I actually don't mind this. I think this is quite a positive update. The only question I've really got is that, where's this money coming from? Because we got told, do we not have any money then? Because we've sort of been told two different things. Like, we got told, obviously, by Robbie Evans that the January transfer window will be difficult and we're not looking to do anything in the January transfer window. But then we've also been told in the recent weeks with the likes of The Guardian that actually Leeds United do have money to spend. So I'm a bit confused at where we're at. And the other thing to mention with all this sort of combining is that we know at the back end of the summer transfer window that we went for Harry Wilson. So when you're looking at it going, well, we went for Harry Wilson, we got told by The Guardian we've got money. What is the outcome here? Do we have money or do we not? But I tend to sort of side with the YEP, and if they're saying that we don't have money to spend, then we probably don't. And we probably are going to do loan additions. Anyway, there's something else we want to talk about in this, but BMG's left a comment. He said, I thought we'd get 2 more at the end of the summer window, and it was totally wrong. I would agree we should go for loans to do to a lesser extent. Under 21s who don't add to the squad, there's a few we could try. Sorry, I'm going to read that again. I've absolutely butchered it, mate. I've got to be honest. I thought we'd get 2 more in at the end of the summer window, and it was totally wrong. I agree. We should go for loans, and to a lesser extent, under 21s who don't add the squad. There's a few we could try. Yeah, I agree. Look, we've got. There is options in the January transfer window, as you said, to go and do options. There is loan players that we can go get in January, and all I'm saying is go get them. Maybe Buonanotte might be free for a loan again. I know he's a loan at Chelsea, but maybe he wants to be in the Argentinian World Cup squad and thinks I'm not going to get in the Argentinian World Cup playing about 10 minutes at Chelsea, which we could have told him all this summer. What a plonker. But now that's happened, is he going to re-look at it and say to right, and look, can you recall me and let me go back on that loan again? So he might be an option again. Potentially some Leeds fans might not want him, but he could be an option. BMG also says Manu is one we could target. Buonanotte and Uche, maybe, if they get recalled. Yep, there we are. There's also a 19-year-old Chelsea whose name I can't recall too. Are you thinking of Tyreek George? I think you are. I think you're thinking of Tyreek George. But yeah, as you said, mate, there's another one there. And potentially, if you're Tyreek George, you look at it and go, can I go to Leeds United on loan, maybe get 5 to 10 goals between January and the end of the summer, and you never know, give myself a chance to the World Cup squad. Like we almost saw, do you remember that time when Joe Willock left Arsenal and went to Newcastle on loan, scored a load of goals, and sort of was in the round it for England at that moment in time. And as I said, that's what, if I'm a player, that's what I'm looking at, that as an option, really. And can I do something? We saw it with just Lingard as well, didn't we? Manu ticks both boxes, possible loan, and he's under 21. Yeah, I agree with all this, mate. The only issue is with Kobe Manu. He ain't going to come to Leeds United. He's unfortunately, in my opinion, too probably good. Like, in terms of, not that we wouldn't want him, more that, like, you look at sort of Newcastle are linked with him, and there's loads of, like, sort of Champions League-esque clubs that are linked with Manu. And I think that's probably his level, if I'm being totally honest. So I think he's probably a step too far. But look, I would be completely open to it. And he's a fantastic player, but I think he's probably too far. But he's just an example, in my opinion, of someone that you can go get, or someone that's going to be available in January that maybe wouldn't normally be available. And you said, yeah, it is Tyreek George that you're talking about. However, sort of talking through all of this, when you look at it and you're going, okay, Leeds United do not have money to spend in the January window. They've got to do loans. That is what we're being told. So the instant response, in my opinion, is to go, well, what about sales? Why don't we sell a few players that we're not going to use? And then, you never know, sell a few players, get a bit of PSR wiggle room, spend some money. And then you hear the update that we're not going to do sales again. And I've got to be honest, and I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible, and this is not a rant, but it's just where I'm at this moment in time. What are we doing? What are we doing? Why don't we sell players at this football club? We are so bad at selling players. Sell players, Leeds United. I almost got it in the summer a bit more, because I think in the summer, you get to a point where you go, we don't know quite who's going to climatise. We don't know who's going to make the step up from the Championship to the Premier League. So let's keep these players around into the January window and get to a point where you look at it and you go, oh, this player's working, this player isn't working, let's move him on, let's keep him on. Like Joe Rodon has made the step up, but he might not have done. And then obviously you could look at moving him on if he hadn't done, but he has. And the obvious one, and the reason I put him on the thumbnail of this video, is Joel Perreault. For me, we've got to move players like Perreault on. Not being used at the football club, still got a decent stock. Sell Perreault in January. He's the exact sort of player that we need to move on. Gives us a bit of book value. His contract's, I think, sort of 1.5 years left at this moment in time. So sell him in January, get some money in. He's still got decent stock, because only 6 months ago he was the top scorer in the Championship. Move him on, bring someone else in who's actually can emulate the profiles of a Lucas Nmecha or DCL, and we get a better outcome there. What are we doing? Why do we not look at moving these players on? Why are we so bad at selling players? And do you know what's annoying about this? When we sold Archie Gray, and when we sold Rutter, and when we sold Somerville, I actually looked at it and thought, wow, these lads know what they're doing. These lads know what they're doing. They've sold for good fees there. I mean, to be honest with you, Archie Gray, regardless if we like it or we didn't, played one good season in the Championship and went for £40 million. Now, I know he's obviously young, and that's why he went for the price tag he went for. That is still an awful lot of money, £40 million for a player that's played one season in the Championship. And I looked at that and went, like, in terms of a deal, that was a good deal for Leeds United. Even though we didn't want it, it was a good financial deal for Leeds United. And I looked at it and went, these lads know what they're doing. They can sell for good fees. And then, since we've been promoted, the lack of ability to sell footballs at this football club is baffling to me. And I said, I got it more in the summer because you might go, well, Perot might climatise this division. Farke might use him. He might use him in a 2 up front system. He might use him in a single strike up system. And obviously, Perot started the season up front for Leeds United. But it hasn't worked. Move him on. Move him on, please. And then you get some money, and then you can buy players that actually fit the system. God, it's baffling. It honestly baffles me. It baffles me to the absolute core. I feel like I'm quite low down here, by the way. Can I put my chair up or something? Look at that. Whoa, I feel like I'm really way too high now. Blooming heck. Anyway, I am much higher up. Manu ticks lots of boxes, yeah. One problem with Manu is that Farke might not guarantee minutes, which could be a condition of a loan for us. Yeah, well, Manu, as I said, I don't think Manu's a goer for Leeds United, unfortunately, just because of everything that comes with it and the fact that, as I said, he's just, unfortunately, probably that step above Leeds United at this moment in time. BMG says, we are crap at selling. You're right, mate. You are absolutely right at selling, but Perot is really the one is only the really one we could sell. Mez and Harrison could go, but won't due to their wages. I do agree with this. I'm not like... every time we talk about sales on this channel, we always get back, why don't we sell Jack Harrison? Why don't we sell him? And in principle, yes, sell Jack Harrison. Great idea. Use the football club. Not good at this level. Tick, 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 tick. But then, unfortunately, you get a big fat X on the fact that he's on too much money and no one's going to pay his wages and you can't really get rid of him. So that is the big problem. So I do understand that. But with Perot, move him on. Please move him on. And as I said, the rationale, and I've seen this before, and I do get it to an extent, that why don't we keep Perot until we get back to the Championship if we do go back down and then you can use him to fire yourself back up again? I get that, but I disagree with it fundamentally because for me, surely the replacement that we're bringing in is going to be better than Perot. That's why we're replacing Perot, who's not useful, doesn't work in this system, and bringing someone in that does. Surely that is a beneficiary factor to what we're doing here. Because I've got to be honest, I know Perot got 19 goals in the Championship this year, and fair play to him, and I don't want to turn this into a Joel Perot bashathon. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do here. But if I'm being totally honest, he got 19 Championship goals. We created about 1,000 chances a game. Like, if you look at the XG numbers that we had last year, it was through the roof. We were creating chance after chance after chance. And we even had a striker, which in my opinion has got bad movement, and sometimes he'd create chances and then score goals. And that's how we did it. And he's not a bad finisher, Perot, but his movement's awful, and we still got 19 goals. So for me, with a better striker, like if you put a fit Calvert-Lewin, for me, in the Championship, instead of Joe Perot last season, he'd have scored 20+ goals, easy. Honestly, he would, if he'd have stayed fit. And that's what I mean. Why are we keeping this player? And we're also completely devaluing his stock. It's madness. It's honestly madness. Who else could we sell? People say Gruev or Strout, but neither would raise much and would cost more to replace, and we need them both. They're established now and they know the club system, etc. Yeah, I do agree with that. Perot is the one. Perot's the one, mate. But it's more about this number 9 thing and not being able to spend. Like, it annoys me when people say the club will say we can't spend because of PSR and they've kept Joe Perot. Like, it just feels like, what are we talking about here? But yeah, I do agree with you. I'd keep Gruev because I think you're probably talking £5 million there. And I would keep Strout because fundamentally I'd start him if we're playing in the back 4, and I'd start him in the back 3. So I don't really want to sell Pascal Strout. And I actually wonder, because in the summer, to be honest with you, I thought we should have sold Strout just based on the fact that you could maybe get in £25 million for him, maybe more. And I looked at him and went, you could sell him. He's basically zero. He came through the academy, basically. I know he didn't quite come through the academy, but I think we paid like £1 million for him, which basically means now, because he's been at the club so long, he's worth nothing. So you could bank £25 million from him. But fundamentally, one of the things that I probably underestimated is that he's a really good option when you go to a back 3, and he's also probably a better centre-half than Biel. So you don't really want to sell Pascal Strouk at this moment. I do get that. Let's see what Richard said. Richard said, we only seem to sell when we needed to sell them players. We only seem to sell when we needed to sell them players. Yeah, we need to sell now, mate, to be honest. We need to bring in funds so we can actually do some business in January and not just do loans. So it's annoying that we're getting briefed from the YEP that we're not going to sell players. I said this would happen. I said we're going to start here in the next few weeks. sort of how the January transfer windows go, so we almost get prepared for it before it happens. This is a classic method that football clubs use. If there's some bad news or some news that they know the fans won't like, rather than just firing it all at once, they basically drip feed it to you. So by the time it actually comes, you go, oh, well, I knew it would happen anyway. And that's a natural place. And I think we're starting to hear the leaks now that it's probably going to be a difficult window for Leeds United. It's going to be loans. We're not going to sell anyone. All these things that we probably didn't want to hear. Manu isn't coming, he'll go abroad. Yeah, I don't think he'll come either, mate. There's an argument to loan Harrison just to free up a squad place. Mez will probably hang on just for an extra 6 months' wages, which would drop if he leaves. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Melia would be hard to move on. And the nonsense that we heard in the summer bit as well about the fact that, oh, we're not going to move Melia, and it helps Leeds United. Does it? Does it really? Anyway, this is a Friday night show. No more moaning. I don't want to do much more moaning. It's a Friday night show. Favourite show of the week. We don't need a moanathon. BMG says, I know you don't buy this, but there is a chance that Pro can work in a 2 with DCL. Yeah, truthfully, I don't, mate. Do you think it actually can work, BMG? Because we actually usually agree, and I'm interested to know this. Do you think that is a feasible thing with what you see from Pro in terms of physical attributes and in terms of the way that he's not mobile in the slightest, he can't hold the ball up? Do you still think do you think that's a viable strategy? Like, I just don't see it, mate, in truth. BMG says PSR is one limitation, but the other is the squad size. It's 1 in, 1 out now. Cairns is the obvious one, as we could use the money. If we can get rid of Mez, that's 2 spots, and we still have 3 keepers. Yeah, well, I think fundamentally, mate, I do agree. The squad, for anyone that doesn't know, you can, I think, have, is it 25 players in your squad or something along them lines, and we've currently got 24. So we've only actually got 1 available slot to bring people in January. But of course, that's again why you'd want outgoings to be able to free up spots. So you are right in terms of that. But I think you can obviously move on the likes of those of the likes of Alex Cairns and move him into just like stop giving him a squad number, and then of course you freed up 2 spots. So there is stuff you can do, and Leeds United have got to look at that. Richard says, I don't think Pro works as a 10 at Premier League level. Do you think he works in a 9, mate, either as well? Like, I just don't think he works at all. BMG says, we've been a bit unlucky with Mez and Harrison, who are both on big wages. To an extent, mate, but we're the stupid ones that gave them deals. So, you know, it does work in both sort of capacities, I guess. Both in their prime age-wise, but both have become crap. Yeah, no, exactly. No, I know what you mean, because I think, truthfully, when we actually gave Harrison that deal, I do think every single, majority of Leeds United fans did want to keep him in that moment. But it's also, look, I think there's 2 sides to this. I think at that moment, most fans wanted to keep Jack Harrison. But in the same way, the club has got to be smart enough, in my opinion, to go, all right, this is what the fans are saying, but this is what we're going to do because we don't see that outcome. And that's where the club have got to be strong. And I think it's definitely something you can throw at the club at this moment in time, that they're not strong enough in that capacity they basically, I think the club sometimes listen to the fans too much. Like, they were put off selling or sacking Farke in the summer because of fan pressure. They always leak stuff to the media to get fans like, oh, approval. Do you know, it annoys me sometimes, this stuff, where like it's sort of it's like on the fans and they have to make their minds up. It really does frustrate me. As I said, it's almost like the fans are the big brother of the football club. And like it's the little brother going, am I allowed to buy these bag of sweets, or are you going to tell me off? Let me just let me know first that I might do it, and then if we do, then I might tell you off. And then they're almost preparing for it. And it's like, come on, you're a big football club. You've invested millions here. Make your mind up and do the right thing for the football club, even if sometimes the fans don't like it. And I think that's something to bear in mind. It's only 1 in, 1 out if they're over 21. That's true, Richard. You are right. Richard also says, nor a 9. Yeah, so we agree, Richard, in that sense. Paul says you're very talented. Thank you very much, Paul. I guess that's up for debate either way. But thank you. I do appreciate that. I don't usually get compliments, I guess, in the chat, so it's nice to hear one. BMG says, I'm not convinced Pro can work, but in theory, DCL doing the hard graph and Pro doing the finishing could work. In theory, yes. In practice, I'm not so sure. Okay, do you think that, would you play Pro tomorrow or Sunday, should I say, in that sense? We don't have him. Would you play Okafor or would you play Pro? I guess that's a better way of looking at it. BMG also says, Joffe is the one silver lining that could finally make us some money. True. If he carries on like this, he's easy a £10 million player easily. Yeah, no, 100%. Joffrey's someone actually that I think as a club we've probably given up on, and he's basically done a he's basically done a sort of like I'm going to show you season from Joffrey, and it's nice to see. I love players like that. I love players that prove me wrong, and to be honest, it didn't really prove me wrong. I always felt that he was a talented footballer. I honestly did. I always felt that it was a good option. And one thing you see early from players is the sort of the ability to control the ball in tight spaces and not panic under pressure in tight moments. And I've always felt, in my opinion, that Joffrey's always got that really good tight touch, sort of good control. And I think that's something to build on with Joffrey. And I think that's what they've managed to do at Hull, get the best out of it. And he should have been used more, to be honest, at Leeds. But we had a really talented squad last year, and you can't moan too much. I mean, we did win the league with 100 points, people. Come on. I'm going to butcher this. I'm going to call you the 9051, the 9051. I'm going to call you that. Kearns can be sold as he's part of the home. Can't be sold as he's part of the homegrown quota. I'm not saying sell him. I'm saying keep him as a squad number. Not give him a squad number. I think that still counts. I think you have moderate talent, Scott. I'll appreciate that, mate. Moderate talent's better. I've been called some all sorts in this chat over since I've started doing this. I tell you what's worse, actually, people. If you ever want to do this yourself, which probably some of you should, because a lot of you have got really good opinions. TikTok is brutal. Do not, whatever you do, upload on TikTok, do your little short thing. That's what I do. But do not read the comments. Otherwise, you'll be wanting to put a gun to your head. Honestly, it's horrendous. I give Pro a try at some point, but maybe not tomorrow. Fair enough. We have enough homegrown players already, I think. So we can drop Alex Kearns. Problem with Joffrey at Premier League level is he's a player without a position, in my opinion. I know what you mean, mate, and I think they've done quite well at Hull, obviously sort of shadowing on that right-hand side. And I think that's worked really well. And as I said, I do sort of come back on a lot of people who always say, oh, well, we should have used him last year. And I mean, I just said it myself, so I'm looking like a bit of an idiot here. But what I mean by that is that I think you can moan to an extent and maybe we should have used him. But we were doing well last year. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like we underperformed last year. We got 100 points, scored 100 goals. We didn't really have a creative issue at all at any point last year. So maybe at times off the bench we could have used Joffrey, I think. But realistically, it was never going to be a mainstay because, truthfully, the team's too good. Do you know what I mean? Although, having said that, I think he's got as many goals now, or more goals now, than Brendan Aronson got all last season. So, you know, let's keep that one quiet, eh? Because we don't want to do too much hate for Brendan on a Friday. If you are watching, Brendan, apologies, mate. Richard, true, but ambitious Championship club should shell out 10 million for him. Yeah, no, I think the issue with Joffrey is that he's only got 1 year left on his contract in the summer. So unless we sign into a new deal, which I don't think he'll sign, you're only going to get a certain amount of money for a player with sort of a year left on his contract. So I think that's something to bear in mind. I asked my former manager for a reference. He replied and said, keen but crap. I was fairly happy with one of the two. Fair enough. Anyway, should we have a quick look at, I say anyway a lot, do I? Blooming heck, what's wrong with me? I was about to say anyway again then. What's the different word for anyway? Moving on. Let's have a bit of a talk about sort of Nmecha and Sunday's game again, obviously against Brentford. I didn't really want to do a preview because, to be honest with you, one, I'm kind of bored of making them, and truthfully, I don't think you guys enjoy them that much based on just purely views. So we're sort of just hiding a bit of a preview in this show tonight, rather than doing a whole in-depth, ooh, the score's going to be this. Sod it, no one cares, mate. You know what I mean? So, anyway, there you are again, joke word. But I wanted to talk a bit about sort of Nmecha because we're almost pointing towards it so far this evening, obviously talking about would you play Pro up there? And I think this is the underlying question going into the Brentford game, is that Nmecha being out would have started. So how would you position this team without Nmecha in the team? Because you've either got a few options for me. You can put Okafor up top, which we've done, didn't particularly work. You can put Perot up top with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. For me, probably won't work either. You could also change back to a 4-3-3, put one up front, play with two wingers, back to the 4-3-3 as well. They're the different options. And I think this is a tricky one. Because I don't like any of the solutions, if I'm being honest with you. I don't like Okafor playing up front. I don't like Pro playing up front. I don't want to go back to a back four. So I'm a bit sort of... I think this is just one of them situations where whatever you do, there's a bit of a weakness. And this is where, after the game, I'm going to have to bear this in mind when I sort of... If we do lose, and I have to give Daniel Farke a bit of sort of punishment, I guess. Punishment? Criticism is a better word of looking at it, because you've got to understand the tools that we've got available. And we don't have Nmecha. Because if it goes wrong, no matter what we say on tonight's show and whatever Farke does, if it goes wrong, he'll be blamed for it. So I think at the moment, I'm probably edging more towards still sticking in the 3-5-2 and playing Okafor up there with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And the reason for that is because we've got to, when we're playing long balls, we've just got to fire them towards DCL. That's what we've got to do, first of all, if we are going to do this. The other reason I want to do it is because it's Brentford. And one thing Brentford are really good at, and I'm sure a lot of you know about this as well, they're a really physically good team. Very, very good in a duel, very good from set pieces, very good from long throws. These are all their massive, massive strengths, in my opinion. And when you try to obviously neutralise the opposition's strengths, if their strength is set pieces and being powerful, I think you want 3 centre-backs on the pitch. And they obviously already play with 3 centre-backs as well. So when you're defending a corner or attacking a corner, you're almost then matching them up in terms of they've got 3 tall centre-backs, 1 big striker and then 1 small striker. We then have 3 big centre-backs, 1 tall striker, 1 small striker. And I think we can neutralise a lot of their set pieces, because I think we're quite good at defending set pieces, actually, touch wood. So for me, I would stick with it just on a physicality standpoint of playing that formation. I also, if I'm being honest, I've thought this for a while as well, and I've talked about this on the channel loads, but we don't have a good enough right winger for me, really, to want to play a 4-3-3. Like, Nont, I think, can do a job out there. I think he'd pick Brennan Aronson anyway out there if we were going to play a 4-3-3. But I don't see the obvious right wing option that's really strong. So, for that reason as well, I think I'd play a 3-5-2. I think. Let's have a look at... I've missed a load of comments out here. I'll have to scroll back up the chat a bit. But BMG says I could say without further ado. I could say that. I could say that. Or any if it bothers you. Sebastian says, if Leeds want to buy Yuda, maybe Leeds can use Pro in this construction. I think with that striker, mate, the Japanese striker that was mentioned, I don't think that's something that Leeds wants to do. I think that's something that there's an ex-pro of some regard or ex-scout or something that says Leeds United should go and buy him. I don't think Leeds United actually want to go buy him. I think it's someone just recommending that we go do that. But I would like him. I mean, I think he's got 18 goals in 15 games this year. So he's, I mean, pretty decent. And also, I think you've seen the progression a lot of times with players coming out of the Dutch League and coming in to the Premier League, and it being quite a successful transition. Obviously, Pajau's done a job, but he's gone to France. But the main one is probably Cody Gakpo, who's obviously transitioned really well. So I'd be well open to that. But I don't think the club will do it. And I don't think the club want to do it. I also think he's probably out of our budget potentially as well. So I don't know. I think Pro is for Feyenoord an excellent striker, at least in the Dutch League. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Pro to the Dutch League makes a lot of sense. There was obviously a lot of interest in that in the summer as well. So I think that's a good option. BMG says, assuming we play 3-5-2 and DCL plus either, it could be Okafor, Pro or Nonto, none of which are ideal but could work. We could try DCL and Gray, but I seriously doubt I will. Yeah, he won't play Gray, mate, I don't think. My main reason for wanting 3-5-2 is that I think it gets the best out of Biol, Strauch and even Rodon. And arguably Bogle and Goodmanson are better as wing-backs, and 2 up front is better in my opinion. I agree with all that. The only thing is, mate, I don't fully agree with the idea that I don't think the front two's really that good when we don't have DCL and Nmecha. I absolutely love DCL and Nmecha. I think it's a right throwback. I think it's fantastic to watch. I love them bullying centre halves. I loved everything about their performance against Chelsea, and I loved it against City as well. I genuinely think it's brilliant to watch. I love watching it, and I think it works really well fundamentally as well. But I think when you don't have one of them two, it's not as good, to be honest. I don't think it works as well. Easy says, Pro's suffered because of Farke. I'm 100% for Pro. He's one of the best finishers I've seen in open play for Leeds. And I would bet if we sold him to a Premier League club, a Premier League club would buy him. Truthfully, mate, and we disagree a lot, Easy, as you're sure. I disagree with all of that, in my opinion. The only bit I agree with is I think that Pereira's a fantastic finisher, and we'll never debate that. I agree with you on that. But I think every single part of his game, except finishing, is bad. And I think if we put him up for sale, no Premier League club would want him, in my opinion. I don't think there'd be any suitors in the Premier League that would want him. So for me, and I don't think he suffered from Farke. I think players have suffered from Farke, but I don't think he's one of them. I just think he's not good enough to play in the Premier League. That's where I am with it, truthfully. But I know you've been a fan of Pro, and since I started this channel, mate, you've bashed the Pro drum the whole time. And truthfully, you're never going to be probably proven right or wrong on that because he's probably never going to play. But I think we'll see, mate, if he did go to Premier League club, that you'd probably... I think I'd probably be right on this one, but I might be wrong. Perot could be sold to a Netherlands club, maybe at a Serie A or La Liga club, maybe. I honestly don't even think he's good enough for that, if I'm being honest. BMG says, easy, that's my thinking. DCL to win headers and Perot to finish. Just don't know if it can work in practice. I honestly just don't think... The problem is that when we're in the Premier League, it's so important that every single person can put a shift in off the ball because we're not good enough on the ball to have to carry anyone, and we're not good enough off the ball to be able to carry anyone either. We can't carry players in the Premier League. We're just not good enough to be able to do that. And I feel out of possession with Pro, you are always carrying a body. And I actually think in possession he's not that great either. I think he's decent in terms of like he can drop into the pocket and link up the play at times. I thought you saw that in the first half against Everton. But I don't think he's that effective, and I don't think I think when he gets a chance, he's quite good at finishing the chance. But I don't think his movement's good enough to ever be in a position to finish the chance in the first place. As well, as I said, for me, Perot is a fantastic finisher and scores most chances he gets. Why did he only score 19 goals last season? If he's a really good finisher, which he is, why did he only score 19 goals? Because his movement isn't good enough to get in the right spots to finish chances, in my opinion. He didn't have enough XG against his name. He wasn't involved in enough shots. And he should have been involved in more playing in the team that he did last year with the amount of chances were created. Evening all Everton. Are you an Everton fan, Richie? If you are, nice to see you, mate. I don't think we've had an Everton fan. We used to actually have a Norwich fan in here who used to be quite interesting, but we hadn't had an Everton fan. You're going on well at Everton, aren't you, to be fair to you? Going well. Above Liverpool as well, which I'm sure you're pleased with. BMG says, Perot could be successful in a very dominant team like Man City were a few years back. Potentially, mate, but he's not like... When I say he's a really good finisher, like he is, but there's levels to the game. Like, he's not a really good finisher for Man City level, if that makes sense. Nothing will convince you about Pro, Scott. Truthfully, no, it will. No, it won't, mate. To be honest with you, as soon as we bought Pro, within probably about 10 games, I knew he'd be okay in the Championship and do a job in the Championship for us. And people say, okay, 19 goals, that's ridiculous. But as I said, the amount of chances we created in the Championship, Nmecha and DCL both fit score more, definitely, than Pro did for me in the Championship. But yeah, after about sort of 5-10 games in the Championship in the first year, I knew he'd probably score goals in the Championship. But I also felt he'd never be good enough for the Premier League because he's just... He doesn't work quick enough. He almost looks, Perot, to me, like he's playing in like slow motion. And he's playing in... Like everyone else is playing at 100 miles an hour and he's playing at 50 miles an hour. Like it looks like he can't keep up with the speed of the whole thing. Not just in terms of like his running ability, but actually he's like the way he can interpret a game. Like he gets caught in possession a lot because he don't have quick enough reaction speeds. The only thing he does do, which as I said, the best thing about him is in front of goal, a lot of players panic, and he's very calm in front of goal, is Joe Pro, really calm. And that's what makes him such a good finisher. He doesn't panic. He never panics anywhere on the pitch, actually, but he doesn't panic. And he can just sort of see the spot and pick it and place it into a corner. And that's what was so good for us in the Championship. But in the Premier, you don't get that time on the ball that he probably needs. And you also don't get as many chances, and you've got to do the more stuff as well off the ball. We will... Anyway, you said nothing will convince you about Pro, Scott. We'll have to see. We'll have to see it to believe it, but that might never happen. I'd sell him if we can get 15 million, but I bet we don't. Yeah, I agree with all that. If we can get 15 mil, I'd definitely sell. But I don't think... Richard says Sleepy Joe. He almost is, mate. It almost is. It's almost like it's just so... The game just looks slower for him. It just looks slower, and not in a good way. Like... The game also looks slower for, like, Xavi and Iniesta because they're so in charge of what they're doing and they can see everything a mile before it's happened. Perot isn't that. He's just slow because he looks like he can't keep up with the pace. Like, I feel like Havertz is a bit like that as well, to be honest. Like, he's almost like Havertz, but of just a way worse version. Let's have a look. Pro's a lot better in the last 6 or so games last season and has looked okay this season. His link-up play is better. He won the header the other week. Truth. Yeah, mate, I'm not going to be convinced on it, truthfully. Yes, Everton, Moyes building for the future. Buying quality players in 7th. Moyes wants a European place. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where you get, mate. I don't mind Everton, actually. I think we had a bit of battle with Everton a few years ago, obviously, when we were both fighting relegation. But now we're not. I think Everton... I actually think Everton are quite like Leeds, to be honest, in terms of big club being mistreated for a long time this season, for a long time, and now they're sort of getting back to it. And fair play to you, because it was a bit of a mess. Obviously, you had issues with ownerships and Moshiri and all that mess and spent a load of money on crap. But yeah, I think you're getting back to it. And as you said, KDH by the season, I actually called that, mate. I've got a few mates that I talked about it, and we all felt that KDH was an unbelievable buy. Anyway, I can't talk too much about this because this is the lead show. But yeah, it's Everton are doing really well, so fair play to you. And that win at Man United, by the way, we were loving all that as Leeds fans. Pro scored more for Swansea, even though they weren't as good as Leeds. Scott, you asked why Pro didn't score more, but Pro didn't miss many. Yeah, the reason I was saying, I agree with you on Pro didn't miss many, mate. I just think his movement's not good enough. Like, I think with Pro, with better movement, would score more goals. But I think we created loads of chances, and if he was in better positions, he would have scored way more. That's my feeling. I can't say that, Richard. I can't say that. And I need to keep my monetisation. I need to save my £1 that I get for doing this. BMG says, if someone says, penny for your thoughts, Scott, sell. Just kidding. Yeah, no, exactly. I must admit, as I said, I don't want to turn this into a Pro bashing, but you know, I just don't rate him. Sebastian says Brentford won, Leeds 3, hat-trick for Pro. Mate, I love nothing more than Leeds United doing better than I thought. We were 2-0 down away at Man City, as I said, a few weeks ago. And me and my brother were watching the game together, and we were almost laughing at how bad we are, which I don't really like to do, to be honest, but we almost were. And I thought we were going to get absolutely trounced. And there was nothing more satisfying than Leeds United putting out a second-half performance that I didn't expect. So I am praying I'm wrong. I really am. But no. If he scores a hat-trick on Sunday, I'll shave my head. How about that? Have that, Sebastian. I'll shave my head. And to be honest with you, if I shave my head, I am sort of getting to that stage as a man, unfortunately, where my hair is starting to go. So I feel like if I do shave it, it'll never come back. So that's how much pressure I'm putting on the line here. Bamford only signed with Sheffield United in Jan. He's available. Oh, wow. Bamford back. Get in. Bring me a bit of Paddy B. No, please no. Please no. Bambi's in the past, people. Bambi's in the past. Sebastian says, I agree with you, Scott. Leeds need to sell Pro in January and buy another physical striker, Tony. Well, unfortunately, mate, Tony's headbutting people in nightclubs. So, slight issue there. He can't control his head movements in a nightclub. So, I can't really promise he'll control his head movements when he's on a football pitch. And not just that, he's also not going to be able to join in January in terms of an actual lesser joke here. He can't join in January because he wants his money that he's getting from Saudi, and he's not stayed in Saudi long enough to get their be allowed to use their tax-free haven. So basically, if he came back to the UK, be taxed something like 14 million quid. So he's going to stay for at least another 6 months to ensure that he gets his like 14 million pounds tax-free rather than having to pay UK tax. So basically, if you've had a bad NHS recently, blame it on Tony because he's avoiding paying tax by going and moving to Saudi. I'm joking. I am joking. The halftime transformation versus City was the opposite of the halftime versus Palace under Grazia. Yeah, it was, mate. I was actually at that Palace game, and my old man, wise enough as he is, seen enough Leeds United and knows how it goes, said as soon as they scored that goal on half-time that we were knackered. And obviously, for some reason, then Cooper decided to have a fight in change room. Cheers for that, Coops. Brilliant. Enjoy Sheffield Wednesday, mate. They'd actually get a point over there, didn't they? Regardless. But yeah, and then we obviously came out and just bottled the second half. So that was fantastic. But Paddy B did score in that game. Perot won't be sold, that's for certain. Yeah, he won't, mate, but I think that's more to do with because our club just no idea how to sell anybody. I wanted Mitrovic in the summer. Is it possible or worthwhile? Complete lunatic, but kind of what we need. Yeah, Mitrovic, I wouldn't mind. I'd actually like Mitrovic a lot. Yeah, I wouldn't mind Mitrovic at all. But I think he's on too much money in it, truthfully. Also, Serbia haven't qualified, have they, or they're not going to qualify for the World Cup anyway, so that sort of is a bit of a... So it's not probably got the same desire to get into a squad, I guess. Would you sell Pro to a rival? Yeah, I would. I generally don't rate him, people. I honestly generally would. I wouldn't be bothered. If we, I mean, people go mad, but if we sold him to, say, Burnley for 15 million quid, do it. Honestly, I'm not. I don't think he'd make any difference at Burnley at all. Sell Pro to Wolves, yeah, they're not even a rival. Honestly, did anyone watch that game at Man United Wolves on Monday? That is the worst. No offence if there are any Wolves fans in the chat, there definitely isn't. But if there are any Wolves fans in the chat, no offence. And you probably don't even care anyway. But that is the worst performance I have ever seen from a Premier League team ever. And we've been bad in the Premier League, but we've never been that bad. That was horrendous. I honestly think when I watched that game, I thought, God, we beat these 3-1. We should have won about 8-1 with how they're playing. But I think they're the worse now than they were. I actually think they've got worse under Rob Edwards. I think he's an overrated coach. But again, we're going off track here. Easy would be hilarious if we sold Pro to West Ham or someone and then they pipped us. That wouldn't be ideal. Ideally, don't go to West Ham. Burnley more because they don't create many chances. But honestly, I don't think he'd work anywhere. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Mitrovic is playing and is fit. A loan might be possible. Yeah, as I said, Mitrovic is the exact sort of player, mate, that I'd look at and go, someone like him would be perfect. Burnley would bite our hands off for Pro. They probably would, mate, actually, to be fair, because Lyle Foster's garbage. And bro, you can't stay fit. By the way, we're on about Leeds United, some of Leeds United's business being bad. Burnley paid nearly £20 million for Broja in the summer. I mean, talk about a bad signing. That is honking, lads. That is absolutely honking. What are you doing? Broja, oh, God, it's almost, you almost want to throw up in your mouth. Wolves are pretty much down. If we finish below Burnley, we're down. We need another team to be worse than us. Exactly, mate. I think we finish above Wolves and Burnley. At this moment, I don't know who that third team is, if it's not us, which is kind of my worry. What else do I want to talk about with Brentford? Oh, that's it. Brentford, if you want a bit of updates on Brentford, Kevin Schade, a guy who scored 10 goals last season in the Premier League, had a decent time of it, obviously, this season as well. He's banned for the game. He's had 5 yellow cards, so he can't play in the game against Leeds on Sunday. This is actually, genuinely, jokes aside, quite a good update for Leeds because he actually is a really quite a talented footballer, Schade. I actually really, really rate him. And him not playing is massive for Leeds, actually, because they've got Igor Thiago, which is a bit of a shame because he's a bit of a baller, second top scorer in the division. And obviously Utara's a good player as well. But it means that really, unless they're going to play like a Lewis Potter on like a wing-back role, on a sort of winger role, they don't really have another winger that's any good, really. So if they're going to play a 5-back, it's going to be a 5-3-2 for them, and it'll be Utara and Igor Thiago up front. But I thought I just throw that in there because genuinely, Kevin Schade missing for this game is a really huge positive for us. It really is. I think it's a massive positive. Let's have a look. There is a player called Okerson who looks good but's been injured for months. Okerson. I'm not sure who he is, mate. I've got to be honest. Sebastian says Fleming is their best striker so far, I think. Yeah, and he's not really even a striker, mate. He's more like a 10. Had all the promoted teams will go straight back down, but performances against that, I can't say that word, and you ain't even put it, to be fair, Rich, either. Against, presumably you mean Liverpool, you stay up. I hope so, mate. I hope so. But I'm not so sure, truthfully. I'm not so sure. I wouldn't like... I'd love to say Leeds are going to stay up and we've had a fantastic week, which we have. But realistically, I'm a bit worried about it. I've got to be honest. Bookies have West Ham third favourites to go down, then us. Yeah, I've seen that, mate. I still think we can finish 10th, but Farke would have to be sacked. I don't think we can finish anywhere near 10th. I think if we'll look, I think 17th I'd snap your hands off with, and I'd snap your hands off whoever's the manager for 7th. Ori Orkerson, Google him. I can't do live, mate, but I will do another time. We can talk about it potentially tomorrow. Let's bully Henderson. That is one thing, actually, Sebastian. Henderson has been fantastic for Brentford this year. Really good. We actually probably should have gone in for him in the summer. It would have been quite a good addition. Obviously, really good in terms of the leadership as well. Standpoint, fantastic on the ball. Still got it. And he's had a great time with it at Brentford. Really, really good time of it. Created a lot of chances as well, and created got quite a few assists. Easy for me to say. So yeah, he's annoying actually. He's done quite well, and I think they've got quite a decent midfield. I really like Damsgaard in the number 10 role. And actually, I know a lot of you and the guys on the channel want a number 10. Damsgaard is fantastic. I think he's exactly what people would want at Leeds. Gets loads of assists, really clever footballer, really good on the ball. Can see that pass that a lot of people can't. He's a really talented footballer, Damsgaard. I do think. Look, I like Tanaka. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's quite different to Damsgaard though, and I don't really think we've got a player in that sort of attacking midfield role like a Damsgaard. And I think someone like him could elevate us. To be fair. But they've got no Schade, so have that, Brentford. Absolutely have that. What else have I written about that game? Let's have a look. I also get some getting some comments as well. This run of form has made it very unlikely that Farke will be sacked unless we go on a terrible run. I do think, though, mate, I think we can sometimes get caught up in the sort of positivity. Like, let's be honest here. Let's be totally honest. If we lose to Brentford, the Daniel Farke out movement will start again. It will do. And then if we don't beat Crystal Palace, it'll carry on. And if we don't beat Sunderland, it will carry on. I don't think we're out of this Daniel Farke situation at all yet. I think we're well in the Daniel Farke out movement. What I would say, though, is obviously I run this channel. We constantly get your guys' opinions on. Over the last few days, I know we've still got people at Daniel Farke out, and we obviously still do. There has been a shift, I must admit, with the feeling towards Daniel Farke. Like, it's not as negative. It's no. I mean, it was never going to be, but it's nowhere near as negative as it was. And that is what I've seen firsthand for sure. But as I said, I'm telling you for a fact, if you don't want Daniel Farke sacked, get ready, because if we lose to Brentford and we put in a crap performance, they'll be going for him again. It will be on again for sure. Are you happy with the 49ers? Says Richie. Am I happy with the ownership? Happy, strong. I'm content with the ownership. I'm content. I think sometimes you get caught up in they're doing a really bad job when they're probably not. I never think it's as bad or as good as people make out. And I'm there with the 49ers. I never thought they were as good owners as everyone else did when we got promoted. I don't think they're as bad now as people think they are either. I'm not really like that. I don't hugely bounce extreme to extreme. Like if I'm on an extreme, I usually stick with it for a long time, and that's where I'm at. I'm content with them. I think they've messed up. I think they messed up in the summer not selling players. I think they're going to mess up in January not selling players. I sort of understand the reasoning in terms of a PSR standpoint that we couldn't buy the amount of players in the summer that we needed to. I also understood that we couldn't buy the amount of players that in January that probably need to as well. So I do think we are being hamstrung by PSR, but that's a lot of clubs. But we are. And I think they would spend if we had them if that wasn't the situation. But I don't know. I'm sort of that's where I'm at with them really. Damsgaard is a good example of a player who took a while to adapt to the Prem. He's quite average. He was quite average to start with. Yeah, 100%. But he's brilliant now, isn't he? He's really, really good player. I actually think Damsgaard could be one of the most underrated players in the Prem. I actually think a lot of Brentford players are quite underrated, which they are going to be because they play for Brentford. The next 3 games are the big 3. Wins and we're doing great. 3 losses and we're banging trouble. Most likely we'll get around a point per game probably. Yeah, I don't think that's enough though. I think we need... I said earlier this week we need 4 points in the next 3. And I'm still with that. The reason for this is, I think Brentford comfortably is the hardest of the 3. I think if we actually get a result at Brentford, that's pretty decent. I'd be quite happy. I'd be all right with a draw at Brentford. I think Palace is probably the easiest just because of how good we are at home and their awful fixture schedule, playing on the Thursday and then playing again on the Saturday under the lights at Ellen Road at 8 p.m. Always going to be a tricky game for them. And then Sunderland, I think, would be second easiest because they're fantastic at home, but obviously AFCON's going to kill them in terms of they're not going to have a proper squad when they play us. So they are going to be as weak as they've ever been. So that I do think that's a positive. We're playing at Sunderland at a really good time, but I think I think we'll probably beat Palace actually. But I think we can't just lose the other two. We've got to get something in the other two games. We're like to lose most away games. I know where this is going easy, and I've now read ahead and I'm right. We're like to lose most away games because of Farke. Relies on defensive tactics away, so mistakes will cost us. It's funny you mention this actually, because I actually don't hate this opinion. And we always talk about, we disagree all the time, easy, which is part of the channel. It's what we do here. But I actually potentially agree with you on this, because I talked about this actually on my press conference reaction at sort of about 2 o'clock today. Daniel Farke made a comment saying that basically was suggesting that it's probably easier for Leeds United to beat Liverpool at home than it is to win at Brentford. And as much as I agree with him, because I do think going into the Liverpool game, I was more expecting points than I am against Brentford. But I do think that can be down at Farke. I do. I think Farke's time at Leeds United, if he's won a few failures, one of his massive failures, in my opinion, has been the away form. We were to say how good we were in the Championship, we were terrible away from home. Right, we were bad. Like, I know we were only 4th in the division, but for how good a team we were, which we had the best team in the division, I think we can all admit that. We were bad away from home. To be 4th, I think, both seasons. And again, in the Premier League, we've obviously beat Wolves away, but we've recognised that they're absolutely pants. And we've lost every single other away game. And a lot of the times actually not looked competitive. Because it's not just losing away, it's being competitive away from home. And actually looking like you might get points. And like in the Forest game, they're one of the worst teams in the league. And at no point did I ever think we were going to get a point from the game. So I must admit, Easy, we don't usually agree, and let's frame this, lad, because we're not usually there. But actually, we're on it today with that. I agree with that. I do agree. Sebastian says DF needs to adapt like he did. That's also the only way we stay up. Of course, Leeds will still lose the majority of their matches, but they are competitive, and there's a bigger chance of points. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. I do agree with that. This 3-5-2 seems to get the best out of the squad. But I don't think Farke really got the players he wanted. I think the recruitment was rather poor. Yeah, I honestly go back and forth from recruitment, mate, in the summer, because like I look at it at this moment and go, maybe the recruitment was quite good. Like Stack, again, he's had a few good games now. You're looking at him thinking, yeah, he looks quite a decent player. Beal now with a back three looks pretty decent. Perry's not been as bad in recent weeks. I don't actually think he was that bad against Liverpool. I know people don't like him for the second goal, but I didn't think it was that bad of a mistake, personally. I thought it was slightly unlucky that it just happened to bounce off TK's knee and sort of stumble over him. So you're looking at it going, maybe it wasn't that bad, the recruitment. And then obviously the strikers have actually done quite well in recent weeks. Obviously now they're both up to 4 goals, both on frees. So I mean, I toss and turn on this. I really toss and turn on the recruitment. What do you guys in the comments think about the recruitment? Do you think it was like where are you at? What would you? I'll read it a different way. What would you lot rate the transfer window in the summer out of 10? In terms of, if we only had 100 million to spend, how well did we spend the 100 million out of 10? Rich says, I'm 67, so I go back to when Leeds were great to watch. Yeah, like my dad, mate. You're just a bit older than my dad. And he was the same. I mean, he's seen Leeds United win the first division, etc. Unfortunately, at 24, I've never seen that. Basically, since I've been a Leeds fan, we're basically, when I was born, we were in the Champions League, and then we fell off a cliff after I was born. And we're sort of slowly recovering since Bielsa's come in, and obviously now, and it was slowly recovering as a football club, but we're nowhere near what we once were. If we can draw away against the bottom 6 or 7 teams and beat them all at home, we can stay up. Issue with that, mate, we've already lost a lot of them games away, especially if we can get more points, home wins versus teams like Chelsea. I do agree with that. B Quirky says, when was the last time we won in London? Thinking it was Brentford under Jesse Marsh. We must have won in London under Farke, surely. Did we not win in London under Farke at all? We won at Millwall under Farke, 3-0. There you are. Look at that knowledge. That is... Sometimes you've got to give yourself credit, and that's generational. It was 3-0, actually. And actually, Perot scored 2. Rutter scored at the end. Did Perot get a brace in that game? I think he did. Yeah. I think he did. We scored that really good goal as well. Was it the second goal where it was a lovely passing move? I think team selection is more important than formation. because our creative players are not trusted enough by Farke. We don't have a lot, truthfully, mate, though, we don't have a lot of creative players, do we? In fairness. I don't think we do. Sebastian says he needs to play 3-5-2 away from home and wait and see what happens during the match and adapt if necessary, like against Liverpool. This is my exact feeling, Sebastian. That's what I do. I completely agree with you. We've seen that 3-5-2 can work at home against a team like Chelsea, but it can work away versus Brentford. We might find out. Yeah, I agree. Richard said 5 and then... And that's it. I'm not sure about that one. We know after 38 matches, but I think the recruitment is not bad, but could be better. Oh, you're saying 5 in terms of recruitment, aren't you? Yeah. It's all about the money as well, of course. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true. I don't think we recruited well for 3-5-2. The fact that we might change to 3-5-2 suddenly makes Be-all, especially Ball now, look like good signings. If we recruited for a 4-3-3, then we got priorities wrong. I agree. I do agree with that. I actually think in terms of 3-5-2, I slightly disagree, as I said, because I think we recruited well for 3-5-2, maybe by accident, but I think Nmecha and DCL both work well in a 3-5-2. I like Goodmanson at wing-back role. I think he does that really well. I actually think Goodmanson's attacking work is better than his defensive work as well. So yeah, I don't know. I think we're doing all right, and obviously Be-all's worked well in a 3-5-2, and in terms of centre back role, and I think Bornau probably would as well. Rich says we need a striker. Yeah, the truth is, mate, everyone needs a striker, don't they? Oh, you're on about Everton need a striker? Yeah, you do as well. Seb, like I just said, I think the recruitment looks a lot better now. We're trying to play a 3. Oh, you are saying it looks better in a 3-5-2, but I don't know if that was the plan. Yeah, surely the plan was a 4-3-3 because Farke played it, and it's his little baby, innit? So, you know. The problem with 3-5-2 is Farke will prefer defensive midfielders over AO. We'll see about that, mate. I think in Farke's best midfield at the moment, he would play Tanaka. Oh, you're saying Leeds? Truthfully, mate, you need a striker as well, but everyone needs a striker, don't they? To be fair. Are you impressed with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, mate? Because 4 goals now, 3 and 3, not looking so bad. But yeah, what we're saying, I think our best midfield 3, and I think Farke's favourite midfield 3 at the moment is Ampadu, Stack, Tanaka. And that's my favourite midfield 3 as well, for the record. I think it's a good midfield. Agree easy, but only DF knows how he wants to play. That is true. So that's the point, Scott. I think the recruitment was good for 3-5-2, but it was by accident. Right, okay, yeah. I see what you mean. Anyway, we've been going for about an hour now, which is the longest stream I've done in, God knows how long. But I hope you've enjoyed it all as always. I've actually really enjoyed it tonight. I always enjoy it on a Friday. I don't know why. But I just think everyone's just much happier. It's the weekend, you know, how it is. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it as always. And we will, I don't think I've got anything on tomorrow evening as well. So I might be back around 8 PM tomorrow for a bit more Leeds United talk as well. So if you are around Saturday evening, then crack on. B Quick says smash a like as well. And yeah, if you could do that, that would be brilliant as well. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff does massively help. And if you are joining, you have just joined in the last sort of I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, and you want to see a bit more of me, then you can sort of fire it all the way back to the start of the video and watch the other part of the video as well. So if you want to do that, then you're more than welcome to. Agree, he needs to play with this midfield as well, if possible. Yeah, I agree. I've only got to miss the whole stream, March Nigger, says Jack. Well, I said, mate, you can go scroll it all the way back to the start and watch a whole 58 minutes of pure quality content. Well, that's up for you lot to decide, not me. The best midfield 3 is AO, Stack and Longstaff. I know you don't seem to like Ampadu. I think you're missing something there. I think Ampadu's good. I like 3-5-2 for the reasons I stated, but I think Tanaka has to be in it. Otherwise, we have 3 midfielders who are all defensive, and Stack is a lot better as a 6 than an 8. I must admit, we'll end on this, people. I really disagree with this, and I've seen this a lot online. I've seen it again in the chat. I think Stack's better in the 8. I don't think he's better in the 6. I really don't. The reason I say this is I like what he does going forward. I think he offers quite a lot going forward. I think he can pick out a pass. I think he's quite good on the ball. I think he's quite a good ball striker as well. I want all these parts of his game used. So for me, he's an 8. And I know he's played at 6 at Hoffenheim, and it worked well there, and he was like a destroyer in that sort of number 6 role. And maybe he can do that. I'm not saying he can't. But from what I've seen of Stack, I want him in an 8 role. I want to use that progressiveness in his game going forward and driving through the midfield. And you don't get the license to do that playing the 6 role in the system that we play with the 3 that we do it. So for me, Stack all day is a number 8. I want to see him in the 8 role personally. But I know there's this thing going around that he's better in the 6. I just disagree. Anyway, thanks all for watching. As always, hope you enjoy your evening. If you are having a beer or, I don't know, a non-alcoholic beer if you don't like it, or you might just like a box of Heroes if you want some Heroes or something instead. I hope it all goes well for you. And yeah, shall see you all later, everybody. And as I said, we might have a stream tomorrow. And if we do, we'll talk about all the fixtures tomorrow and how that affects Leeds and a bit more chat probably about Brentford as well. If Stack is better in the 8, then why do you want him and Tanaka both in the team? Because I want Ampadu in the 6 and then Tanaka and Stack as the 2 8s. Anyway, thanks all for watching as always, and I shall see you all later, everybody. Bye for now.